Pandemic forced us to take a closer look at what matters, what to prioritize, and how to reach or stay connected to learners. We had to rethink how we use tools, how we think about those tools, and how we think about our own thinking. When schools closed in early March last year, they scrambled to find a solution to keep learning going for the rest of the school year. Most had high hopes that the pandemic would end before the opening of school year last year, or that opening would just get delayed, then things would be back to normal. But when it was clear that distance learning was the way to go for school year 2020-2021, schools again scrambled. This time, to find the best learning technology to employ for remote learning. Perhaps to them, it was the key to enabling access to other resources, getting enrollees, gathering information, and a semblance of normalcy. It is no small feat to set the vision and roadmap for education amidst this context of VUCA, short for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Schools rallied to the government's clarion call to keep learning going and perhaps merely paid lip service to the same. Vukam bibig na lang yung keep learning going. When we speak of the pandemic, you hear buzzwords like new normal, disruption, VUCA, ODL, blended learning, modules, and suddenly, even LMS. LMS became the ultimate solution. But do you know that as early as 1990, there was already an LMS, and the first known LMS is first class. Imagine, it took 3 decades in a pandemic for many to value and embrace LMS as a teaching tool. On one hand, those without a learning technology had to look for an emergency solution. And yes, for some, it is still an emergency solution. For schools that had an LMS and, better yet, a well placed tech integration program, there was already an immediate solution. It only required a new way of looking at its value, a new way of using it, this time in a fully online setup, not the usual blended learning mode. Indeed, hindsight is 2020. Now, let us look back and reflect on our hits and misses. Let us start by comparing our policies and practices before and during the pandemic. Was there a common understanding of facilitating learning using appropriate technology? I repeat that. Was there a common understanding of facilitating learning using appropriate technology? Yes or no? Please comment below. Second, was it clear to all concerned how improvements in performance are measured? I repeat, was it clear to all concerned how improvements in performance are measured? Yes or no? Again, please comment below. I am fortunate to have put up and led one of the first distance learning programs that employed blended learning, a form of distance learning. That was a decade ago. But the kind of distance learning that we experience this school year is one that has given distance learning truly a new meaning as it is unprecedented in many, many ways. As a learning modality, distance learning, as its proponents intended, was for adult learners. Yes, distance learning was designed for adults. Thus, the philosophy and purpose are grounded on forming self directed learners. But of course, we all know that distance learning, circa 2020, is for learners as young as 5 or 6 years old. That alone required an entirely new way and a new lens to look at distance learning. Secondly, as distance learning is for highly individualized or personalized learning, class size is supposedly relatively small, no more than 10 ideally. But of course, in the Philippines, the average class size is between 30 and 50. The challenge that we continue to face is how to efficiently and effectively employ personalized learning in a big class. No wonder then, as the learning structure is highly traditional, learning delivery is still traditional, translated digitally. But I will discuss that further in the next few minutes. In short, we got a wake up call to reevaluate both pedagogy and heutagogy, which is the management of self managed learners or self directed learning. Personally, I feel fortunate to be at the front lines of this watershed moment in education, a moment in recent history like no other. I feel fortunate to have seen distance learning in various school contexts. Working with many schools not only as an edtech consultant, but as a resource person in various distance learning webinars gave me the front seats to the distance learning show. To date, I have conducted more than 50 webinars on various topics about distance learning, giving me a truly rich opportunity to listen to the so called voices from the field. In my webinars before the school year opening, I got asked reasonably the same questions all the time. For instance, on instruction, the common concerns point to employing authentic assessments, ensuring engagement and academic integrity, promoting student wellness, and active parental involvement. I would give my humble opinion based on what I know and what I have experienced, but these pieces of advice would always come with a caveat that there is no one size fits all solution. I further recommend I further recommended to always make sure to understand the context, especially of learners whose realities at home we may not really know. 3 quarters after employing distance learning, do you know that the same questions are still being asked? If you attended the 2 rounds of our real talk with teachers here in Alaga, I asked the teacher panelists about the concerns I just mentioned. I observed that their answers to the questions and concerns about engagement, assessment, academic integrity, and parental involvement were fairly the same as my replies and recommendations in my webinars, even before we embarked into distance learning. And also, the comments of those watching the said live sessions with teachers mirrored the same views. We have yet to see, I believe, whether or not the approaches and strategies we commonly shared to employ distance learning are truly effective. But I am certain that the coming months and years of employing distance learning will give us all better solutions to the concerns relevant to your context. No doubt, the pandemic forced us to take a closer look at what matters, what to prioritize, and how to reach or stay connected to learners. We had to rethink how we use tools, how we think about those tools, and how we think about our own thinking. We are familiar with the pandemic's pains, but what then of the gains? We hear stories of learners who are thriving in a distance learning setup. Moreover, school leaders had to rethink productivity and better work life balance for employees under their care. These are gains. These are our success initiatives. Some schools have been doing blended learning, a form of distance learning, for years, while others have just begun their online edtech journey. Yet, the concerns and the experiences relating to them are relatively similar. Now, what about the learning technologies and their role in this new educational landscape? How did your schools address the big challenge to keep learning going amid the uncertainties? How did your schools build your distance learning plans and plan a smooth and safe distance learning journey this school year? Have we learned our lesson from this grand experiment of keeping learning going? From the experience of the majority of the more than 300 Araling schools plus those from non-Araling schools that we have surveyed, and from the evaluations I have conducted, here are 5 insights we can reflect on as we pivot and plan for the next. Insight number 1. There was technology acquisition panic. And this resulted to the non-maximization of what was available, be it technology, information, or human resources. No doubt, the immediate concern was to identify the best technology tool to employ distance learning. Panic was an understatement. Since rolling out Araling 7 years ago, I have never seen as many product demo requests as the flurry we received April, May of last year. And even as we kept stressing that Aralinks is an edtech program more than just an LMS, the focus of the questions would still be on the Aralinks LMS. Moreover, there was a frenzy to digitize what teachers used to do in the face-to-face classroom instruction and management. This led to looking for web conferencing features of an LMS or one that complements or can be integrated into the LMS. Oh, by the way, the Aralinks LMS goes with 5 video conferencing tools. And when asked how schools intend to use these video conferencing tools, most said that they would be the teacher's primary teaching tool. For many, the video app was regarded as a tool to make sure that the teachers are teaching. Of course, it is a powerful teaching tool. But apparently, some intended to use it just to show or stream the teacher. Now, does this have an instructional value? Of course, it does. But can the video conferencing tool do more than just being an interactive lecturing tool that will show the class? Based on what I have seen in many online classes, the more important value of the tool seemed to have taken the back seat. Anyway, I will discuss this further in the related insight later. For some, this panic on tech acquisition meant that their current learning technologies were not maximized. In a leadership roundtable that I moderated a few weeks ago, one school leader echoed this reality. He pointed out that in hindsight, there was no need for them to have adopted other technology tools as they already have an existing LMS that they have been using for years. He shared that they soon discovered and realized that the other powerful features of their LMS were not maximized pre-pandemic. In other words, their current learning technology was more than enough for their purpose and needs for ODL this school year. So, what have they missed here? I think that while they seriously considered the feedback of their teachers, the school could have made complementary assessments or a complementary assessment, a more technical one that validated or maybe invalidated the first findings or feedback of the teachers. This is because most users expectedly evaluate based on their experience. But when it comes to learning technologies, such experience is always limited only to what they know and how they use the technology. You know what I mean? Based on our experience, most of the concerns raised about the use of the Araling's LMS or those that some of our current users are looking for, such as interactive authoring tools for adaptive learning, are actually in the Araling's LMS already for years. By the way, just to remind everyone, the Araling's LMS has more than 60 authoring tools, yet only 10 are being maximized. Sadly, for some, adopting the Araling's LMS is like buying a smartphone used only for texting and calling. Nung mahulog ang phone, only then did they discover that it actually has a camera. It has a video recorder. Okay, anyway, insight number 2. Teacher capacity trainings focused on technical skills, not on distance learning pedagogy and heutagogy to ensure learning effectiveness. Understandably, to reap the benefits of an instructional technology, learning how to use it is the first step. But focusing mainly on this technical aspect of teacher training undermines the very purpose of educational technology. And that is ensuring student learning, ensuring effective learning. Yet again, one of the primary concerns about technology use in instruction resurfaced. This time, even worse, I guess, that teaching just got digitized. Last summer, a school owner shared with me that all that he wanted is for his teachers to know how to digitize what they used to do. This is because according to him, he knows. Emphasis on the word knows as this came from him, the word knows. He knows that when teachers learn how to digitize what they used to do in the classroom using LMS, they could already survive. Schooling would already continue. True enough, this happened in many online classrooms. Some merely translated online what they used to do in the face-to-face classes. For instance, the video conferencing app is used merely to record the teacher while explaining a lesson as students watch. But the modality has changed. So should the teaching approaches or pedagogies, right? Of course, as educators, you know very well that digitization is not necessarily tech integration in instruction. Because while digitization may work for some, this may mean that the prowess of technology in transforming learning is not maximized. Using the SAMR or SAMR model in tech integration, for instance, that is simply enhancement from low tech to high tech, and no significant impact to learning has happened. But of course, All these are understandable and expected, especially to those who are relatively new to tech powered instruction. It's all part of the transition to something new, something unfamiliar. Online distance learning did not come with a manual. And even our rich teacher trainings did not also prepare us for this. So but moving forward, I know that we can all transition from enhancement or digitization to transformation or powerful integration. Earlier, I mentioned pedagogy, which is the management of self-managed learners or self-directed learning. The ODL or the online distance learning experience involves a lot of independent learning. Therefore, this goes beyond ensuring academic integrity or checking in on students. In this light, here are some questions to ponder on. Have your teacher training or reskilling sessions included how to develop students' self-management and self-direction? Mhm. Do your students have the skills and mindsets to manage their own learning? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to reflect on these for a few seconds. Then share your insights on the comment box below. Okay? So I repeat that question. Do your students have the skills and mindsets to manage their own learning? Did you prepare them for that? So I would like to see your comments below. Remember, students are not just managing their time and deliverables such as their modules. They should also be able to manage their thinking and emotions, especially as we have hit the pandemic wall. Last Monday, our keynote speaker, Dr. Miyashiro, talked about how parents are also experts on their children's learning. He also showed a student's TED talk about how schools are not prioritizing kids' health and happiness. And many of you reacted to this on the comment box. Now I ask you, were your stakeholders' voices and feedback translated into teacher strategies and protocols, such as intensifying social emotional learning, trauma informed teaching, and so on? I repeat that. Were your stakeholders' voices and feedback, so the stakeholders into the parents and even the students, did it translate into teacher strategies and protocols, such as intensifying social emotional learning, trauma informed teaching, and so on? And for school leaders, even as we demand so much of our teachers, did we also train them to deal with this new way of working and coping? Take another look at your capacity building. What are teachers' new responsibilities in the online distance learning context? Have your expectations for them and how they will be evaluated been clearly communicated? I will give you a few seconds to reflect on these questions. Okay, again, please write your comments on the box below. Now, let's go to insight number 3. Addressing equity gap or digital divide focused on technology this school year. In my first webinar on distance learning last year, where I outlined proposed actions and solutions to keep learning going amid the digital divide, I stressed that this divide or gap is not just about technology acquisition and technology access, but still, the focus of some in addressing the digital divide or promoting equity in the distance learning context is on providing the needed technology tool or gadgets and internet access to all teachers and students. Again, understandably, this is the first thing to address, or these are the first things to address. But gap in technical skills is digital divide too. So when it comes to technical skills, there is already a divide between the so-called high-tech teachers and those that can only say high-tech. Moreover, there are those with strong pedagogical skills but with low technical skills or vice versa. Now, how we match the strong and the not so strong in terms of technical skills and pedagogical skills is essential to ensure equity. Moreover, it is not enough that learners and teachers have access to the information or resources that they need. In this era of fake news, misinformation, propaganda, and revisionism, I cannot overemphasize on the need for an access to clear, verified information. Teachers and school leaders, the quality of digital learning experience that we provide can help form an informed citizen, one who is critical of online information and resources, empowering him to form informed opinions and actions. Are we doing something about this? Are there institutional initiatives of support along this? Join the conversation. Just comment below, guys. Okay? Now, let's proceed to insight number 4. Teachers have become tech support staff too, and they have no choice. Okay, teachers are known to be certified slashies, subject teachers slash advisors slash coordinators slash committee heads slash etc. That was already difficult pre-pandemic. And in distance learning, teachers play the same role in a different context, plus more roles. So the impression at the beginning of the school year that teachers' load would be lighter is certainly not true at all. Furthermore, the new normal in education forced teachers to be tech savvy. Thus, trainings have focused on technical skills acquisition and enhancement. Without a choice or with no one to turn to during a live synchronous discussion, teachers have become tech assistants to students. In the physical classroom, the teacher has always been the go-to guy for any student concerned. Therefore, same was expected when classes went through the virtual classroom. But of course, not all teachers can effectively perform this added duty of being technical support staff. To those who could be tech assistants, moreover, being teachers became more difficult. Being teachers became more challenging. No doubt, doing this while teaching has negative repercussions on the effectiveness and capacity of the teacher. In another leadership roundtable that I moderated, one school administrator commented that this added role of being tech assistants was one of the reasons for the eventual resignation of 2 teachers who could hardly perform the teacher slash tech assistant role. Okay, let's go down to insight number 5. This school year was more about survival, and technology was its lifesaver. Inadvertently, in the Learning Continuity Plan or LCP, C became the focus of every school. And I can only guess that for some, this was merely to fulfill the government requirements to operate as distance learning providers. Continuity was the operative word. And as I said earlier, for schools to continue their operations, technology tool or LMS was the answer. Listening to many school leaders the past 3 quarters, I realized that many just operated on survival mode. Many just want to get by this school year, then pick up the lessons to move forward to better quality schooling next year or next school year. But of course, LCP is not just about continuity. It is about quality learning amid the limitations and challenges. To remind everyone of its essence, I propose that you add a letter to the acronym LCP. Add letter E, effective. And that is to qualify or describe the kind of learning that that plan intends to achieve or ensure. So you may call it ELCP or Effective Learning Continuity Plan. In any learning environment or modality, the driving element of our instruction and all other endeavors as academic institutions is learning. Quality learning, effective learning. These five insights tell us that these five insights tell us that the emphasis of most of our online distance learning journey is on technology. Did you notice that? Inescapably, of course, ODL is really technology-based modality. ODL can never work without any tool, without any tech tool. But it should not be the end all and be all of any learning journey. I will propose ways to move forward in relation to or in the light of the five insights discussed. All these aim not only to ensure a better school year, but most importantly, to help future-proof quality instruction. There is no going back to the old way of educating our kids. The future classroom, we were warned, is one without a physical building. But it took a pandemic to make most of us believe it was going to be a reality. So, do not just plan and pivot for next school year. Plan and pivot for the next in education. Future-proof your school. Future-proof quality instruction.